As Russia's war in Ukraine enters its 23rd day, those who have fled Ukraine have topped 3.2 million, and of course that number is still climbing. World Vision Canada has been on the ground at the Romanian border in Ukraine, aiding this humanitarian crisis. Michael Messenger, CEO and President of World Vision Canada, joins us this morning to talk about his experience. Good morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Bob. Good to be with you.
You just arrived back home this week. The images that we just saw, that video rolling, you were right there as Romania. That border point was a major corridor and cars lined up forever and families crossing on foot. And these families are being separated as well. I'm sure you have many heartbreaking stories to share.
Well, it's just a sea of humanity, of people who are fleeing from situations that really we have a hard time getting our head around, honestly. Heartbreaking stories. I'm a parent myself. I always think about, how bad must it be for me to scoop my children up, grab what I can fit into a small suitcase and flee into the unknown. I mean, that gives you the sense of what's going on, and leaving family members behind.
Yes,
More than 500.
I was going to say
500,000 people have come into Romania, mostly women and children, separated from their husbands or brothers.
And we had a story this morning. Of course, many men are leaving their families to return, to cross back over the border to fight in Ukraine. Now, with the children, I mean, many of these have never traveled before. Next thing they know, they're in a bunker, and then they're traveling to, a foreign country, and they're confused, and the emotional trauma has to be so severe.
Well, that's what we're seeing again and again. I mean, we know, unfortunately, from other refugee situations or humanitarian responses that children are often the most vulnerable at moments like this. They're vulnerable to exploitation. There are issues of child protection. Separated children or families that have been split up or are even subject to things like human trafficking, which is a real concern. But the psychological toll on kids is profound. They share their parents' fear. They've had to leave behind everything that they know that gives them security, their school, their family, their home, and they're going into the unknown. So not only are they afraid and worried, but they are confused because they don't always understand the big picture and why the families had to be separated. So that's why World Vision, actually, a number of other organizations, make sure that psychological first aid, coming alongside children in particular to provide them psychological support right at the outset, along with the kinds of things that they need to survive, is so critical to mitigate that psychological trauma that they're experiencing.
Yeah, so what is World Vision Canada doing at the border short term, and what are the longer term plans?
Well, we're at a key pivot point right now as the situation moves from a short-term response to something much more longer term. But our focus, it starts with what do we need to help people survive as they cross the border. So many are coming with very little. So they may need shelter, food, hygiene kits, just a place to rest, accommodation on their journey. Some have a destination in mind, many others don't. So they need support along the way. I mentioned psychological first aid, so providing spaces for children to play and be able to talk through some of their feelings with social workers and psychologists. That's a critical element of our work alongside our partners. But also, as we look toward the future, we're really needing to ramp up our response, addressing the issues of people in Ukraine. So we've had humanitarian convoys go into a hospital in Ukraine from.
I was just going to ask you about
Romania.
that. So you've got a presence in Ukraine as well?
Yes, we're ramping that up, and we're working with partners as well, and that we expect that to be something even more significant. Because even though more than 3 million people have fled Ukraine, there are millions of people displaced in Ukraine who can't get out, and others who are affected who desperately need aid. And it's actually harder to reach them than it may be even to reach and support refugees. Okay. So it's going to have to be a long-term response to support accommodation, what's needed for the transition, as well as providing aid into Ukraine as best we can.
Just a few seconds left. How can we help?
The best thing to do, Canadians are so generous, but honestly, the needs far outstrip the resources at the moment. So if your listeners can make a donation to an organization like World Vision or the Humanitarian Coalition, people who are on the ground, been working there since the start, that can be turned into
fantastic
supplies right away.
We will link the World Vision Canada website at chch.com. CEO and President Michael Messenger, thanks for this important message.
Thank you, Bob.
Сонце йде